at that time of my life, footy was life. So it was like all I wanted to do was become a professional rugby player. 2018 season, I actually picked up a contract to France to play for the Tonga A team at the time in touring, and this was about 2 weeks before I broke my leg. So at the time, like exactly what you said, my life was in pieces. I was like, you know, that was my goal in life. But then the more and more I think about it now, I'm like, maybe that just wasn't meant for me. And if I'd gone down that path, I would have never found business. Which
you wouldn't be
so
here. There would have been no money.
Exactly.
Tāna whalawa and welcome to Pep Talk, where we elevate, celebrate and amplify the voices of purpose-empowered people. Today we're really pleased to be joined by Kevin Fuavao. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello.
Hello, and you are from, what's the name of your company?
So my name is Tungane Kore Kevin Fuavao, mainly known as Kevin Fuavao, and my company is Manu Golf. So we are a golf apparel brand that is inspired by the rich Polynesian culture. So
fantastic.
That's our little M brand there.
It is beautiful. Fantastic. Cool.
Awesome. So welcome, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know that you're, heading off to holiday, and it's Christmas break. But we're so grateful that you can make it this morning. Because normally you're in Wellington, right? But we're here in Auckland, so even more extra special.
Yeah, no, definitely. So originally born and raised in Auckland, and then found my way to Wellington via Australia, via Hawke's Bay. So sort of like just don't like sitting still. So I've been quite fortunate to have worked with Marie through Pacific Business Trust, and I've just been so fortunate because I started. When I first came up with the idea of Manu, I had just finished or closed down a business previously, and I was struggling with finding that passion for business again, and I was quite lucky to have linked up with Marie through the Pacific Business Trust, and we came up with a really cool strategy, and mainly we basically grew Manu from there, and just grew my passion to get really back into business. So actually want to thank Marie as well for allowing me to find that passion again, and without Marie and the Pacific Enterprise people, who are now rebranding to Purpose Empowered People, they've really helped Manu to start. So without them we wouldn't be here.
Well, thank you. I mean, without you we wouldn't be here. So it's but kudos to Pacific Business Trust as well, because they were also the avenue in which we were actually connected. I remember when we were creating the strategy, it was a blank piece of paper, but you came prepared. Like, you came with all your research and all your stats, and what I love about the way that you were prepared, you actually meant business, Kevin? You weren't actually mucking around. Obviously you can you tell us a little bit about your background prior to us working on the strategy, and then because it was through the strategy that the conception, right? The actual Manu started to sort of rear its head. But just if you can take one step back and give us a little bit about your background or education, and then into your job, and then obviously transitioning to your business.
So I schooled here in Auckland. I went to Marsden College, then moved over to King's College. Once I finished King's College, I went to the University of Auckland, where I studied Bachelor of Engineering, specialising in mechanical engineering. Graduated in about 2015, and then decided I'd pursue a bit of rugby, which was my passion then.
That's right.
Picked up a contract over in Australia, playing in Sydney, so was there for it was meant to be 6 months, turned out to be 6 years. And then recently returned sort of in the peak of COVID to the Hawke's Bay, where my partner and I started a business in the Hawke's Bay. Moved out of the business about 18 months later, and then moved on to work for the New Zealand Defence Force, where I'm currently working as my 9 to 5, and then on the side, always had that passion for business. And as I mentioned before, I sort of lost that passion after our first business,
Right.
which my partner and I wouldn't say we didn't see as a success. It was more a lot of lessons that we learnt through that. And from there, I remember mentioning to Marie that I wanted to get back into it and I really needed to find a mentor, but I wanted a mentor that was specific and understood the sort of different issues that Pacific people have to the normal Western world. So I just remember typing in Pacific mentor, and I saw Pacific Business Trust, and basically clicked onto that, and then found my way to working with Marie and Simon at PP.
Awesome. And perhaps we can stay on a little bit longer of how important a mentor, but I like what you said, not just a mentor but specific. So what do you think is the difference between just a normal mentor, or when I say normal, mainstream, versus a Pacific? Because I noticed that that's obviously really important to you at the time.
Yeah, I think it's huge, because what I see with Pacific people is that I've noticed it through my time working in my standard 9 to 5. I haven't worked with a lot of Pacific people myself, but the times that I do see it is Pacific people have sort of a different lens when they look at problems, and a different perspective to a solution to a problem. And I think that's got a lot to do with culture, so how you're brought up. And not only that, I think the reason why I really wanted a Pacific mentor was they understood what it's like to grow up as a Pacific kid in such a diverse, New Zealand is very diverse. Growing up as Pacific, and certain cultural aspects like we talk about before, going to church every Sunday, offerings, family gatherings, how important family is. There's just certain things that play a part that need to be factored in business.
Absolutely.
And I really wanted someone who knew what that looked like and could come up with a solution that encompassed that.
So basically someone that could encompass all the Pacific values and the worldview and cultural nuances and, family, and the way that perhaps a mainstream or someone that's non-Pacific couldn't sort of, navigate or bring to the conversation. Yeah,
and I think a classic example would be, quite lucky we're going to have a baby in March next year, a baby boy. Thank you. And the first thing that my fiance and I thought of was we need to be around family. And talking with a lot of people, they're like, why do you want to go back to Auckland? But for us, we just want baby to grow up in the culture, speak the culture, be around mum and dad, or his grandparents, to be able to know what it's like to wake up on a Sunday and have Sunday feast and know we're going to get ready for church, even if the sermon is 2.5, 3 hours long.
Okay, we won't go there. We'll trouble.
Exactly.
So identity, sense of belonging, sense of knowing your culture, enriching any child, on top of everything else that New Zealand has to offer. It sounds like it's really important to you and Angela.
100%. No, 100%. And we've seen that through a couple of our friends in Wellington, where they've brought their son up only speaking te reo Māori, and it's just really special to see that connection that he now has with the Māori culture, and we want to sort of reflect that through our upbringing of our son.
Amazing. So engineering, University of Auckland, educated, 9 to 5 hustle. You're with New Zealand Defence Force at the moment. This side hustle is like another baby.
It is,
right? Because when we met, it was basically, it was just words on a piece of paper or a Google Doc. But the more we met, and what I love about it is that you turned up and you were really serious. You really wanted to actually see this come to fruition, not just like just another document that was full of theory.
Yeah.
But you wanted something. I think the more that we spoke by memory, especially when it got into your culture and your personal experience, being also a minority in a corporate setting. Can you talk about what that's like and how that sort of all maybe solidified your direction into bringing, making Manu a reality?
So, yeah, that was, I remember when we first started and going through the business strategy, we came up together. The biggest purpose and the biggest drive there, which I remember reading it after, thinking I didn't know that was my purpose until we went through that. But it was mainly, I've come through classrooms, lecture rooms, the golf course, even where a lot of workplaces where I don't see a lot of people who look or speak like me, and that sort of growing up in a Polynesian culture where you're so used to that's your safe space.
Right.
So sort of coming through life, living outside of that comfort zone, I realized over time I started to feel like I wanted to shrink when I walked into a room. I wanted to be a bit invisible because I was the minority.
Yeah.
No, not the minor,
Minority.
not young. I was the minority, so that sort of invisibility is what fuels Manu now. It's sort of over the years I've realized I've sort of lost a bit of that culture, and I really want to just be proud of it more and
Awesome.
and not be invisible. I want to walk into the room and people know, oh wow, he's specific and he's proud.
Yeah.
And yeah.
100%. So that's actually a really good point. I really like how you've actually really emphasized that in our talanoa, in our conversation this morning, because often we are, we do find ourselves as the minority. We're the only brown person there. So and that feeling of, okay, you wanna really open up channels, or you want to open spaces more so that we can actually not only learn, because that's why we're here this morning, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, you've woken up early to come here. You could have just said, no, I don't want to be on the podcast. I just want to go and have, your family vacation or holiday this morning. But this is why we're doing it, is so that we can share your experiences, and they are unique experiences to those who are also sitting on the fence, perhaps, whether you're Pacific or non-Pacific, but you're someone that is empowered, you've got purpose, which is why we're here today. So the other thing that you mentioned in your earlier was that you had you had a contract in your sports, so you were also in the sports arena, because that also really is important to what you're doing now in Manu for the golf apparel. Can you share a little bit about that?
So played over in Sydney in the Shoot Shield, for those who know rugby union. That sort of, it was semi-professional, but it took a lot of training, a lot of time spent outside of it. But it was quite interesting. I worked for a company over there that really started to give me that spark for business, and then I was quite fortunate that I was exposed to a lot of I'd say aspects of business that was probably a lot higher than where my position there.
Right.
And then I guess from there I was able to figure out that I really loved business, and maybe engineering wasn't the pathway for me. And then was quite fortunate that I had a lot of downtime with rugby. At the time I had an injury in 2018 where I broke my leg, so I was out for about 13-14 months, and during that time I just basically would get lost in business podcasts.
Wow.
And that was basically where my passion for business started. So I haven't been in that business space for long. I've only really found that passion for business since 2019. So for me, I feel like I'm quite new to business still.
But what I love what you're saying is that sometimes a blessing in disguise is the injury.
Yeah.
100%.
So, you know, just because you have an injury, and how many times we go through life and often we were like, oh my gosh, my dream is shattered. I can't do you know, whether it's sports or something that's happened to us or some challenge or some sort of crossroad. But because that was almost like a catalyst, right?
Yes.
To actually really open up your horizon and look at entrepreneurship and business.
And I agree. So when at that time of my life, footy was life. So it was like all I wanted to do was become a professional rugby player. That 2018 season, I actually picked up a contract to France and was meant to be going to play for the Tonga A team at the time in touring. And this was about 2 weeks before I broke my leg. So at the time, like exactly what you said, my life was in pieces. I was like, you know, that was my goal in life. But then the more and more I think about it now, I'm like, maybe that just wasn't meant for me. And if I'd gone down that path, I would have never found business, which
wouldn't be here. There would be no Manu.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But what I love about your experience is that it's obviously you've gone engineering, but that's transferable skills. Engineering.
Very.
You know, your mindset. You're a very, would you say, a very structured person, or that you know, aspects of engineering comes in.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it's like a methodical way of thinking is what I've taken
that's
from
the
it.
word, methodical.
Yeah. So any problems that come up, and it's even right through to business, the main aspect is I've got sort of like a way of figuring out where the problem is, how are we going to solve it, what steps are we going to put in place, and then little milestones, trying to chop it up into small chunk size pieces. I'm
smiling because that's exactly how you were when we were doing the strategy. I was like, this guy's an engineer, man. You've got this methodical, that's the word, and structured sort of look at things, and you know, looking at how you, what is it, that process of elimination, you know, like do this, and if that doesn't work, it's and that's so handy. That's absolutely really important, you know, to apply in business.
And it's and I guess exactly what you talk about. And for me, the first thing I think of is whenever there's an issue is what would happen right now if I don't do anything. What's going to happen, and then what's the problem we need to solve, and then we got the 100% solution, and then what are we going to find in the middle? That's sort of the thinking I've taken right through, which is basically come from the engineering practice, which has been great.
That's a really helpful mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, so all of these amazing experiences and challenges, you know, heartbreaking, shattered dreams, and then really rising from, you know, like a phoenix, you know, we can either stay stuck. It's really sometimes when we go through life isn't, you know, it's not what do they say, it's like Forrest Gump, life is a box of chocolate. So we never know what life will deal, what cards will be dealt to us, but it's how important, especially as someone that's been in sports on that level of, you know, contracted to France or about to, how important is mindset to that you need in business?
I think it's super important. Mindset is, to me, mindset would be the difference between your business succeeding and not succeeding, because you're going to come through a lot of challenges, and Manu's now only been going for 5 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But we've already come across a lot of challenges where I have to sit down and as we talked about before, you just feel as a business owner, especially if you're the only director in your business, there's a lot of times where you feel so lonely, and you sit there and you're like, wow, there's this problem, and to you it's the biggest problem in the world, and you need the proper mindset to be able to push through those problems, and if you're in it always with a negative mindset, you're going to find you start digging your own hole, and you go further and further in the hole. So mindset for me is absolutely everything, and getting that support around you is huge. So I've been quite lucky. I've got a mentor now.
Great.
My partner is super supportive.
Yeah, that's important. So, how important is that as your partner?
So supportive. So important, and also she just keeps me, make sure I'm always on track, because there's days where I get back from work and I'm just absolutely shattered, but she knows I need to do something, so she just keeps sitting there chipping away. It's not a aggressive get up and do it, but she'd be like, you know, there's something that you really need to do. If you don't do it today, this is what happens tomorrow. So it just starts that thought to go, okay, I'm gonna, you know, straight after dinner, I'm gonna try and do an hour, 2 hours, and it's just that extra little bit of support that I've needed.
Oh, absolutely! What a great supportive partner, and that really segues really well into surrounding yourself with, you know, like-minded entrepreneurs or business people. Do you find that it's quite different when you're holding down a job and you've got your peers in a 9-to-5 versus when you're talking to people that are actually either starting a business or are entrepreneurial? What do you think is the difference from the context of being Pacific?
That's a good question. From a 9-to-5 perspective and a business perspective, I find the topics of the conversation are a lot different. I find when I'm talking with entrepreneurs, and I have a few friends where I currently stay in Wellington who have their own businesses, and we have a lot of chats around issues that are quite common to business, and I find that really enlightening and really cool because it's sharing experiences with them. And I think that's the main difference is being able to talk about issues that you wouldn't be able to talk to with, say, their employees or employees. So I guess that's the main difference. In terms of Polynesian culture, I actually don't know of many in Wellington, so I'm not really able to answer that aspect of it, and that's also probably a sad thing that there's not more Pacific entrepreneurs in Wellington. But I'm hoping PBT and PEP can also help to increase those numbers too.
Absolutely. That's what we're all about, is you know, locating them. I believe they're there. It's just that 100%. You know, they're probably well cloaked, you know, like they're just like just basically head down and doing what they're doing really well. So wow. Now, could you tell us a little bit about Manu? Can you tell us a little bit about the name of your company? What does Manu mean? How do you come about with the, you know, the idea of an apparel golf, and then all of a sudden, ta-da, we've got the brand, got the name.
So I was quite fortunate to have worked for an apparel company in Australia, and so basically learnt the whole industry, or not the whole industry, but what the essentials to starting a golf apparel line. The name Manu, translated into Polynesian and also Māori, is animal or bird. So that context comes into play with getting a birdie in golf, which is one under par when you're playing a hole. So for those of you who don't know, say if it's a par 4, that means you get 4 shots to complete the hole, get the ball in the hole from the starting box. So if they give you 4 and you get it within 3, that's a bird or a birdie. So Manu was the name that I come up with, and the reason why I liked Manu was that it was a 4-letter word, and it's quite easy to say. I've come through a lot of companies where they've had a name, but it's pronounced differently in a lot of different places, and I wanted a name that was very hard to not pronounce correctly. So for example would be Adidas. In New Zealand it's Adidas, in America it's Adidas. So I really wanted one that was very common. Well, even something as small as Nike, you know, here is Nike, in America it's Nike. I know. So I wanted something that was very simple, and I'm still trying to figure out in my head how they can mispronounce Manu. Maybe Manu or something like that.
Manu.
They really got to try though.
That's it. And that's, I remember sitting there with Marie going through it all, and we had a list of I think it was about 20 names. And I remember just writing down Manu, and then I just said, okay,
that's it.
I'm stopping right there. And that's sort of how we got to Manu, and
So cool.
yeah.
Can I ask how you went from rugby personally to golf as the industry that you chose, or the sector that you chose?
Yeah, so during COVID in Australia, golf was the only sport that you could continue to play.
Ah, right.
And it was because you had the social distancing, and you stayed in your own groups, or you can have, I think it was one from another household. So because we were all such active people, and then all of a sudden we're not allowed out on the fields unless you're running on your own, a lot of us got into golf. And it started off me hating it. I've played about 131 shots in one game, which is very
Wow.
bad score. But I remember I hit one really good shot, and it went down the centre and landed on the green, and I was just like,
Oh,
I'm going to spend the rest of my life chasing that feeling.
wow. That must
And
have been an
that's-
amazing feeling,
Yeah,
right?
it was. And that's what I call the golf bug, that
Yeah.
you can hit 131 bad shots, but you hit one good shot,
And that will,
and you just continually chase that feeling. And that's why I've just loved golf, because golf it's such a unique sport where you're not playing against the opposition. So if I'm playing against someone, I'm not playing that person, I'm playing myself.
yourself. Yeah.
And it's that whole mentality of, when I'm standing over the ball, the only person who's affecting the stroke is me.
Wow.
So my mind just starts racing, and it's really cool to just fight that and figuring out how you hit a good shot, how you hit a bad shot. And I guess it's that competitive nature too. It's always been in me in footy, and it's also now something that I can do since retiring from footy.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about how segue into the Pacific, Manu being sort of like encouraging Pacific people to obviously not only enjoy golf, but
Yep.
also the networking of aspect, and
Yep.
you know, the health and well-being, the mental health. How does that sort of connect to all of those amazing
Yes,
streams?
the first thing that Manu wants to, well, it wouldn't be actually, in terms of Pacific people, I feel like, and I'm trying to say this without sounding, actually there's no way around it, everyone knows it, golf is a white sport, and what I want to do with Manu is to just put it out there to Pacific people that they can feel comfortable to be themselves on the golf course. And I felt that the first time I went out there, and obviously there was no other brown people on the course, and I went back into that mentality of wanting to shrink.
Right.
So I just want eventually down the track just to have Pacific people to know that there's an option to go and play golf, and hopefully there'll be a brand out there that comes out and pushes Pacific people to do racing or horse riding. You know, we don't have to all be in rugby, boxing, NFL. We can do non-physical sports too, and that's what Manu really wants to try and push.
Nice.
And yeah, that's sort of the vision. I want to see more Tony Finau's, more Michael Campbell's out there, and eventually down the line, in the pipe works in the 4 or 5 years time, I'd love to be able to sponsor a Pacific golfer to go out there, because it's a very expensive sport, and I know that myself. My partner knows that. My bank account knows that. So yeah, to be able to give that opportunity to someone down the line would just be awesome.
Amazing. What are some of the, as you mentioned, some of the challenges at the moment, like the barrier to entry, right? Is, like you say, it's expensive. You've got to have, I mean, often when I think about golf, it's like you've got to have the gear, you've got to have the shoes, you've got to have the, like the access to places to play, like to actually go and golf. So there's private and public golf courses. Can you talk a little bit about how would you start if someone's listening and they go, okay, I'm interested in finding out, but what could we do? What could they do to just slowly get into it without sort of spending all their bank account
into golf?
Into golf.
Obviously the biggest barrier is definitely the cost. It's very expensive. Like, you're looking at a set of golf clubs, easily $1,000 to get everything. Every round of golf, if you're looking at public to private, you're ranging anywhere from $30 to $200 for a round. So yeah, cost is the biggest thing. The first thing I'd say to anyone that's wanting to get into golf would be to not everyone talks about wanting to get the right type of clubs for them and wanting to buy the next best thing. I'd say just find something that works for you, that you can hit the ball forward and not sideways, and just start with that, and then figure out if you love the game, because a lot of people would spend 4 or 5 rounds and then actually, I don't like the game,
This is not for them.
and try and go and sell the clubs again. So that would be my first thing I say to people. So I've got a friend now who's messaging me saying, are these good clubs? I'm like, any club that they can help you push the ball forward so you figure out you love the game, and then it becomes a long-term thing of trying to invest money over time to make that game better. Because the difference between the best set of clubs and the worst set of clubs for a beginner is probably only 3 or 4 strokes in a game. So if you're hitting 135 strokes, 139 strokes is probably not worth the extra $4,000 or $5,000.
Okay, so start small.
Start small.
Try not to, just have a go.
Yeah.
And see. But I suspect that there's more benefits, like, men. Often men tend to, I think one of our conversation was that you mentioned that often Pacific men tend to share a little bit more about themselves when they're on the
100%.
golf course. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yes, I play with, my average is 4 people a group. So some people will only go out and play in 2s, 1s. I genuinely most of the time play in groups of 4, and regularly it's with the same people. And I've found over time, probably playing with the same group now for about 1.5 to 2 years, that our topics and our conversations on the golf course has just become really good conversations where they start to open up a bit more. And for me personally, it's just a good place for them to just come and vent, whether that be personal issues. We talk a lot. I've got a friend I play with. We talk a lot about business issues, and it's just a good place to just have a huge dump, and then everybody either just listen. If they just want ears, that's great. We just listen, and then we all scream on the golf course when we're hitting it bad, or you've got 3 other guys that just chip in and give their little input. So I think in the environment of being in such a, well, for me, a calm space, and a space where it's just not strenuous on the brain, a lot of people tend to open up, and that's what I love about playing in groups of 4.
Yeah, great. Really love that. And that ticks a lot of boxes between, sharing. Sometimes a problem shared is a problem halved.
100%.
And just getting to know people. And you're out in nature, you're out in fresh air.
Oh, yes,
So, you're getting all that, really good for your mental health, good for that you're coming out of isolation, if you're someone that, not that sporty, but you want to do something. So there's a lot of health benefits and, social benefits as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially for our men, don't you think? I mean, women, you just get us over anything. We'll talk,
exactly.
Talk your ear off, But men is a very different way of getting them to share and open up. Does take time.
Agree. It does take time.
Does take time.
You need to get a connection too, and I feel like golf is that connection between 4 guys.
Yeah, awesome, great. So where to now? Like you mentioned a little bit about the vision. Obviously, you want to see more brown faces, more representation of Pacific people on the golf course, loving the apparel. You're bringing a lot of your Pacific values and prints, and a little bit more of our culture on the greenery on the golf course. So where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? I think you've alluded to that, but from now or and even in the next 12 months to 2 years, what can we expect from Manu?
I think 2025 will be a big year for Manu. So it'll, in terms of what we've done now with my mentor, we've set up the next 12 months plan and what it looks like. So for Manu, it's going to be obviously dropping more apparel line, trying to figure out where we can streamline and make a lot of processes more efficient. And once we've got that at such a small size, so the key for Manu over the next 3 months is to keep small and grow small, so that we can get things going properly. And then once we've figured out the right what would you call it, like architecture or processes, then just click and go and going. So what it looks like for Manu next year is we're going to be dropping 2 apparel lines every quarter.
Nice.
We want to also branch into a female line, and we also want to introduce a Māori represented shirt too.
Awesome.
And that's sort of looking within the first 6 months, and then the second 6 months of 2025 will probably look like an entrance into another country, so potentially America or Australia. Looking into a lot of the analytics of my online shop, it was quite interesting to see how many people going to my site are actually based in America, so sitting at about 50%. So
It's a lot.
yeah, so we need to do a lot more research into, are those actual genuine customers, or have they stumbled on my page through whatever it is, to try and figure out if trying to go into the American market is going to be worth it. So over the next 12 months there's going to be a lot coming for Manu.
Sounds
and
exciting.
a lot of sleepless nights,
Yeah.
not just through work but also with baby, but looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I love how you mentioned America, because I think there are quite a few reports that have come out of America, especially the I think the last one I read was the Wall Street Journal report, and it was really talking about the diversity of women golfers, but also the fastest growing demographic, the millennials between the ages of 18 and 34. I mean, they're really, and I think it's, memory serves me right, it was post-pandemic that a lot of these young people were finding exactly what you said. They didn't want us to be locked up in their homes, test out the open spaces, and you know, so that's, and so Manu, when you mention about the demographic that you guys are serving, that you and the brand is serving, it's absolutely at that cusp, isn't it? It's like really just you are so there with the growth projection, and it's a $4 to $6 billion industry at the same time. So I think this report was talking about, I think it was like $4 billion for 2024, but in the next couple of years they're looking at over $6 billion industry with this fast moving demographic. How exciting is that, especially with bringing the stats back to New Zealand? Our Pacific demographic is also a very young one, so it really parallels really well.
No, definitely. And when I first started thinking about this Pacific Golf brand, a lot of my I didn't really look a lot into stats, but a lot of it was based off of my own experience, and that was just myself playing golf and looking out on the golf course and realizing, wow, there's, you know, the age is getting a lot younger like quite quickly, and then also a lot more friends who are getting into golf. So that's it. I knew that the stats were there, but I never really went out and looked for it. But a lot of it was my own experience, and and that was how fast it was growing. And actually one day I do remember going out, and there was a group of 3 of us, all Tongans, and we sat out there on the course, and we all wore the same shirt. We all wore a white plain shirt, and we all just laughed about it and went, man, we just look like everyone else on the course. And then I remember that flick in my head going, you know, all 3 of us, 2 of them, or actually the other 2 also born in Auckland, grew up in Australia, and then sort of we never really talked to each other in Tongan. So it was that same aspect of being in that Western society that all we spoke was English. And then we started talking about, imagine if there was a brand out there that had, you know, Polynesian patterns or something in it that made us.
So you're not wearing
different.
white? White polo.
White polos, white shorts, white shoes.
White shoes. So, and that's the gap that Manu hopes to and will close, is that really occupy that space. Just before we go, you mentioned that there were some amazing Pacific groups of Tongan and Samoan golf golf groups.
Mm.
And
Yuan,
Yuan.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
Can you
yep.
talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've only just really recently got in touch with him, and I got a contact through the Tongan Youth Trust. There's a guy there, Reverend Ikilifu Pope, shout out to him.
Yeah.
So he managed to get me in touch. So I talked to him one time about the business, and basically there's this whole group out there which I've never heard of, or not never heard of, but didn't know that they were around. But just golfing communities. So you've got the Tongan, Samoan, even Cook Island, Vanuatuan. They all come together, and it's quite interesting the numbers they have. So they had for example, the Tongan one. They had a competition here in Auckland about a month and a half ago, and that brought in 80 golfers from around the world.
Wow. Okay.
So that alone, like, I just sat there going, okay, one, how do I get in touch with these guys?
Yeah.
And two, where were you guys? Like, this is the
Were
first
you?
time I've ever heard of you guys,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you got this 80-man competition. So it's definitely a growing sport out there, especially in the Pacific community. And I know that there's a lot of Instagram groups out there. For example, the Brown Bogey Boys, the Poly Boys, the Poly Golf Boys, the Gimme Crew, and they're all Pacific guys getting together and just golfing. So it's
Amazing.
definitely out there.
Yeah, they're definitely out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, last question.
Yep.
If you were to give advice to your younger self, what would you say? What would you say to him, knowing that all the things and all the ups and downs that you've been through? What advice would you say to your younger self?
I would say two things would be live in the present, which is probably a bit cliche, but like for example, myself right now, I'm a waiting baby, and I just can't wait for baby to be here, but I should be living in the now, enjoying just the two of us, myself and my partner. And then I also think back to like being in primary. I've always said, I want to go to intermediate, and then when I get to intermediate, I want to go to high school. I want to go to high school to uni to work life, and then now I'm like, man, I wish I was back at school. It's so much better.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
So one would just be living in the present. The second one would be to try things and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because the only one who doesn't make mistakes is the person who's doing nothing. So be prepared, be willing to take more calculated risks and just enjoy life, because what's life without risks?
Absolutely. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We wish you all the very best with Manu, and we absolutely love your story. It's very inspiring. Thank you for sharing, taking the time to be so generous with your time. And yeah, we just can't wait to see what 2025 will bring for Manu and yourself and your partner and your beautiful baby on their way. And just so that when people want to find out a little bit more about where to find Manu online, could you remind us, please?
So our website is, you can find us at manugolf.com, www.manugolf.com. On our socials, we're all tagged at Manu Golf Apparel, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn also. So feel free to drop us a line. Also, what we mentioned about before, I'm really open to anyone who wants to go into the apparel industry, or whether it just be business in general. I've had a few people already reach out and ask, general questions around where do I start.
Great.
Manu's so open to what our process are and how to enter the market. Even if you're coming into the Polynesian space, happy for that. I just want people who are thinking about wanting to do it and who want to give it a go and who need that step or guidance to start, to definitely reach out. We're happy to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you very much. And also, sorry, one more thing too. I also want to say a huge thank you to PUP also, not only for inviting me on today, but also for helping me through that initial step that we talked about, that business strategy. Without that, there would be no Manu. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to see the list of people and everyone on this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you. And for
Awesome.
now, bye for now. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, maloha pito.
Malua pito.
Wow, wasn't that an amazing interview with Kevin?
Absolutely. Wow. So much to discuss.
Totally, yeah. So probably one of the biggest things there is the importance of seeing yourself, and especially when you're from a minority culture, actually seeing that culture represented, which is something that for me as a non-minority, a majority, it doesn't strike me. But what I also find is that that's a really cool cultural expression, and that's something that I would be interested in as a customer if I were a golfer, or even if not.
Yeah. And because he went through his personal story, the way he transitioned from injury was a catalyst of, because also he was a sports person anyway.
He was in rugby, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as Kevin shared about the transition or the catalyst of being injured, turning lemons into lemonades.
Heck yeah.
He could have actually done something else. You do read about people who get quite down and depressed,
Yes.
when you really, really wanted to achieve something and you had some goals and aspiration, but then something happens, and life does happen.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's really how he turned that around, turned a challenge around to something amazingly awesome to share.
Definitely.
With opportunities and taking a new leaf.
New leaf, because it's easy to get down, especially with your self-esteem, if your body is your product. You are a sports person, you're in it, your body's on the line, and then you get injured. It could have been really easy for it to go a different way, but man, he turned it into, he used the same discipline that he had in sports to then come into business, and he's still doing that in a really disciplined way. So he's still got his day job, he's doing this as a side hustle, he's really paying attention to the metrics, like where people are coming from. Really interesting that it's come from the United States.
And data is really important. The feedback and the metrics of any business or any project is crucial. I mean, there's one thing for us to dream up something, right? But having that validation from your market, from your key segment audience, the segmentation of that particular audience that he's wanting to capture. And it's awesome that they're from America, which is where I think we mentioned in the interview a Wall Street Journal.
That's right. About the millennials coming into golf in a big way.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's still a 50 plus, don't get us wrong, but there is a rise in not just female golfers, but also the millennials between the ages of 18 and 34.
Absolutely.
I mean, for some parts of America, that particular demographic are even looking at, buying homes near a golf
it's full on, man.
a golf course, but also interesting, and not a private golf course, a public one, because it is an expensive sport. Let's not beat around the bush about that. It is expensive, but the networking, the enjoyment, and there's something about being your own competition, right?
Definitely, eh? So this interview has been a couple of stories. It's been one, it's Kevin's story as an individual who's up against the odds, he's creating a business, but also it's a story of golf. It's a hundreds of years old game, very well established, but it is having to evolve and adapt to changing demographics, changing interests. People are still interested in it, but they want to do it on their own terms. They don't want to do it in an old fuddy-duddy kind of way.
Yeah, so that's interesting across the board. It's not just golf courses trying to, hold down their membership. It's something that's across every
single membership
organization, whether it's gyms or even churches, right? So it's just the times that we're in, having to innovate, having to change, having to be agile. Unfortunately, it wasn't not like how 30 years ago our parents, Samoan parents, coming to New Zealand for a better life, they held jobs down for a very, very long time, decades, and then they had a superannuation or some sort of package in their retirement. Those days are gone.
That's right.
So we're talking to people now that are holding down really good jobs. I mean, also he's an engineer from Uni of Auckland.
Yes.
So he's educated, got his degree, but not just looking at a 9-to-5 job. Not there's anything wrong with a 9-to-5 job.
9-to-5s are great for getting from A to B, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But long-term purpose, long-term vision for him and his family. Dad to be coming up very soon, early this year.
Yep.
And also, you know, really wanting to invest the time after hours. And that is gruesome. You know, the dedication of someone holding down a 9-to-5 job, coming home, getting some rest, rising early, and keep on working on a passion project with the goal and the purpose of making this his business so that he can transition away from his 9-to-5 is admirable.
Absolutely. I love what he said about being present. That's what he's learning, is it's not just about thinking ahead to the future, but being present right now, because there's so much happening in the now, in the moment. Another thing that he mentioned, which is really important to our line of work, is mentoring.
Yes.
That having you as a mentor really helped him to flesh out his thoughts. Otherwise, the thoughts are just kind of inside his head, bouncing around, and I think this is the case with all of us, eh?
Yeah, and I think it was important for him to have someone else that was brown. No offense to our, you know, Pākehā and non-Pacific mentors, but there's something about having, you know, a mentor with a mentee relationship that can relate to your culture. You know, because when you express or when you say something in the mentoring session, you both laugh and, you know, you chuckle or you go, oh my gosh, yeah, we'll totally understand.
To the same things,
totally understand. Whereas, there's a real need for that, that we're coming up a lot of
100%.
with entrepreneurs and people that are looking for side hustles and wanting to transition, as we said, from a 9-to-5 job to running their own businesses.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're interested in being mentored or having some kind of community and support around you, we are launching something this year. It's at a very early stage right now. And so we want to encourage you, if you want to register to be on the wait list, you can do so at pep.nz/Pep Talk. That's also where you can watch all the previous episodes of Pep Talk. But yeah, make sure you get on that wait list if you're interested in being surrounded by the support that you need to take your purpose and turn it into reality.
And I think lastly, it's something that's really important to mention is that, you know, success and purpose is different for everybody.
That's true.
So, you know, I think the definition, or one of the definitions of purpose, is it's a person's sense of resolve or determination. So there's like a new sense of purpose, you know, like, for example, New Year resolutions. So, you know, people are resetting their lives, they're resetting their finances, their goals and aspirations. Yeah. But everybody has a different purpose and different goals. Yes. So what we want to champion in our podcast is respecting and not judging anyone's their path, because they are here to personally share their experience. And also success means different things to different people. True. So success can mean that you're staying true to a deeper sense of purpose again. It could also mean that you are looking at finding joy and meaning in something that you believe is meaningful to each person or to you. So and then pursuing that journey, and especially when you're confronted with fear. And I think one of the things that is hard to transition from a 9-to-5 job is the fear of the unknown. Is the fear that, okay, I'm not gonna have a weekly wage or a salary that's comfortable. You know, all the equipment and all the thinking and all the structure and infrastructure, you know, all the resources are there provided for by your employer. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of maybe perhaps we can end on that, as Absolutely. The definition of purpose is different for everybody, including what success looks like for different people. It could be someone over 50. It could be that you're just wanting to save for retirement. If you're in your 60s plus, you could be a young person that is just starting out in your professional journey, or you're a student, or finishing off a degree, or starting one. So as we can see, there's just so many different people with different purposes and aspirations, and it's just awesome to hear their personal experiences and what they're going through, and the highs and lows. So it's not I think sometimes we see someone in business, or we see someone and they may portray all the glamour, all the trimmings of success, but sometimes we forget that that person has actually worked very, very hard to actually get there. The sacrifices that they have to make. So we hope to this year to continue to bring personal stories and experiences, highs and lows, and the things that we can learn, especially from challenges and dark places as well, and how do we navigate that together, where we're able to share and continue to amplify your goals for 2025.
Sweet. Hey, that's awesome. Can't really say much more than that, but don't forget pep.nz/pep talk, and don't forget to subscribe to this, like this, give us a comment. What do you think? What is your purpose that you're looking forward to fulfilling in 2025? Or if you're watching this in a future year, whatever year you're watching this. So thank you. This has been Pep Talk.
Thank you, and enjoy your day. Thank you again for subscribing and liking, and looking forward to our next guest. Until then,
Tō whāsoi fua.
Tō whāsoi fua.